Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a brand new episode of Definitive Discussion Rebooted, my show where I bring on phenomenal individuals from all over the internet and different places around the gaming industry and different types of hobbies and fandoms, and come onto the show and just chat it up with us, talk about a whole bunch of stuff. We have a deep dive into things. Let me know if you guys have been enjoying all the episodes I've been posting up on the channel ever since 2020 started. We're in the brand new year, so I'm trying to get a whole bunch of brand new content for all of you. But today, I got a cool guest. I got Seth from MCE, which is, he's got a show on there called What's Poppin'. He's a big collector, because that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about collecting things and stuff. Seth, what's good? Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Nice to meet
what's
you.
What's going on?
Nice to talk.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, nice to meet you too, man. I'm excited to be here. Excited to dive into the ever so deep world of collecting.
Yeah, right. Like, and it's a deep world too, because you have tiers. You got like legit gaming tiers worth of collected, because then you got people like me who just collect on and off, little things right here. Then you got all the way up on different levels as you go up the food chain with some like crazy people that do like all sorts of collecting. It's insane.
Yeah. You've got people who start, like you said, at the bottom. They maybe start with trading cards or comics and things like that, and then you get into the world of ridiculousness where people are collecting cars and other high-end items.
Like you go to Rancho Obi-Wan or something like that. Dude is insane.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, to me, that it's cool on the outside looking at it, but it's like being part of that. I can only imagine the level of headache one has to do and the constant worry. Especially when you start getting like a lot of like prized possessions and things like that. Before we dive into some of that stuff, I want to ask you, what's the impulse for you when it comes to collecting? Because I know a lot of people, usually it's the fandom of something they love, whether it's like comics, Batman, what is it, video games, etc. Like, what is it for you specifically?
For me, it's always been about collecting what you like and what interests you. I mean, I've always been into the realm of superheroes and comics and their story arcs, the characters, because throughout their stories and things like that, you have you're able to relate to them, whether it's good or it's bad. But just that in general, I've always been a huge WWE fan. Wrestling has been like my thing since I'm like a kid.
Same.
So it kind of snowballs into like other areas. I mean, I have wrestling collectibles. I've got superhero collectibles. I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff. I mean, my wife unfortunately does not like the fact that it takes up a good chunk of our house.
That's got to be the funniest aspect of all this. I can imagine like what's like, oh, listen, do you have to open up another section for like more stuff?
So that's the thing. This is going to be funny. So it's me and my wife and my two kids. And we live in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. Both bedrooms in the condo are both really big master bedrooms. So all my collectibles and my setup and stuff that you guys see and stuff that people see on camera in my videos, that's me in a small little corner of the section in my bedroom. Okay.
That's
and
great.
I have a storage unit too, which stores a lot of my collectibles. So for my backdrop and my videos, I'm always rotating stuff out just to keep it fresh. But yeah, when you've reached the point to when you buy a storage unit, you're into some serious stuff.
Let me ask you, did you ever think at some point, or at least you felt like maybe you're going to get at that point where you got to get a bigger place, for your collectibles or for your
there's no question. That's actually one of my goals that I'm actually working towards this year, is to actually get sell my condo that I have now and move into a bigger space. Obviously a 4-bedroom house would be ideal. So, each of my kids can have their own room. I can have my man cave and my office and, set everything up the way that I want, and then my wife can have the bedroom and whatever else she wants.
No, that's cool. That sounds reasonable. That sounds reasonable, especially, obviously having a family, which in of itself is a lot of big responsibility, but you still get to do what you want to do, and you still get to have fun with it, which is pretty cool. Did it ever get to a point, either early, like years ago, or even up till now, where there was conflict between the two, like obviously like going out finding all these little things, and obviously there's a lot of money being spent on some of these like collectibles and such. Is there ever a struggle like to balance everything out?
Not really. I'm not saying that I'm well to do, but me and my wife do make a comfortable a comfortable living, which allows us to, do stuff with our family, go on vacations, and and it allows me to, buy whatever equipment I need to do my, do YouTube and whatever collectibles I want to buy. I mean, I don't go hardcore like a lot of people do, but there have been some weeks where I should have maybe pulled back the reins a little bit on what I've been spending. But, but for the most part, me and her are kind of like on the same page about that. We know at the end of the day, we both work hard and we both want nice things. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a part of life. That's just anybody's thing in general, I guess.
Very true. I feel like there's a Star Wars reference in there somewhere, like constantly being seduced by the dark side of the Force to buy more stuff. Like there's something in there. Like, it's funny. But I want to ask you though, because obviously down here, I mean, you're based out in Florida, and you have a lot of different stuff, places that you go to find different things that you want to collect, add to your collection, etc. Do you feel like a lot of the different like collectors, or just the idea of collecting, is a little bit much more concentrated, a little bit much more bigger in different locations? Like down here in Florida, obviously, since we have so many like hobby events, we have a lot of conventions, we have a lot of expos and such. There's a lot of that stuff down here. But like, do you maybe go to like other states and like see things that are a little bit different, or maybe a little bit more so?
Absolutely. So for those of people that don't know me, I am huge into collecting Funko Pops, which is my bread and butter, I would call it. I mean, I collect other things. That's where you do the majority
of content, pretty much, on the Funko Pops.
But the majority of my stuff is Funko Pop related. In the Florida area where I'm at, it is very overly populated with a lot of collectors. Whether they're people who are just collect, or they're people who like to, grab and resell, which is something else that I run into quite a bit. I've been to New York. I'm from New York, but yeah, I've been to New York. New York, doesn't really seem as bad. As far as like getting stuff goes, everything always gets, the people on the West Coast get everything before here on the East Coast, and that's just because of the ports and all that stuff. So I always feel as a collector, and especially someone who creates content, that it kind of sucks being in Florida, because we're always the last ones to get everything, and by the time I get it down here on my end, there are people halfway across the country already that have already put out content for that stuff. I've been to Texas. I mean, other states seem to be a little bit more good with this stuff. Florida does not really have a lot of specialty shops that pertain to pops, which is something that's really hard, because you get like I don't know, are you local too?
Yeah, I'm local. I'm in South Florida.
Okay. Okay. So about Tate, Tate's, and
of course, yeah.
Tate's comics. So Tate's is one of the places that I hit up on a regular basis. They've got a plethora of everything for everybody. I go in there sometimes to get pops. I go in there to get Marvel Legends. I go in there to get maybe some Hot Toys or some statues at some point. But they're one of the places that I go. But there are very few places that are dedicated to Funkos. Period. Now, I've noticed outside the state that there are a lot of shops that are just dedicated solely to that.
Like you got to find them, pretty much. Like you got to search.
Exactly. I mean, most of these places are like trying to find like a needle in a haystack. The one thing that I'm grateful for is, and you should know this too, is the power of social media. People posting stuff on social media. That's how it helps me find new stores or new locations, or pop-up events, things like that. But as far as Florida goes, where I'm at, there is a lot of competition, and the stores, like I like to call them, are few and far between.
So let me ask you this, because I can relate a little bit, obviously, someone that also lived in New York for a number of years, and, getting a little bit of that culture and just seeing the differences between up there and down here, or just pretty much, most of the East Coast and such. Again, on the East Coast, we have a lot of events, New York Comic Con being the biggest one in New York, obviously. And then down here, Yeah, down here I would obviously say like the mega cons, obviously the super cons, etc. That are bigger events that congregate a lot of people and a lot of these types of collectors and stuff. Do you think that the lack of like big specialty shops or just like having to go out and search for them is usually because it's a little bit tough to make that stuff profitable for shops? Like obviously as a collector, like you said, like you run into a lot of different places you could buy stuff for cheap or you could resell things and stuff. But obviously for someone that maybe might be a vendor, that might be a little bit tougher to get out there and actually like really be something like that's like super profitable or constantly changing up or being able to remain relevant and survive over time. Like do you think like that's probably part of the problem?
Personally think that the internet is killing a lot of these specialty shops. Obviously because Joe Blow can open up a line of credit with a company, whether it's Funko or Hasbro or whatever, and they can sell this stuff out of their garage
on like eBay or something.
As long as they have like a business license or something, they can sell this stuff out of their garage, and they have at that point you have no overhead. So a lot of these specialty stores, that's why a lot of them are kind of like falling by the wayside, because people are getting to the point where they just don't feel the need to leave their house when they can not be inconvenienced and just do everything in front of the computer.
True. Very, very true. And that's not just for like, collectibles like Pops or anything else.
That's for grocery shopping, clothes shopping. That's just for way of life. I mean, for anybody, it's funny. I make this joke all the time. So for anybody that's seen Disney movies, especially if you have kids, and you've seen Wall-E, oh, yeah. We're headed to that. By and large, is basically Amazon.
Oh, you are not getting me fat. Forget that. Forget that.
Yeah. So we're all going to be fat at one point and go move around in floating chairs. I mean, that's basically what this is heading towards.
But those Amazon sales though are going to be fire. Straight up.
Oh, well, I mean, of course, especially if you're a Prime member, it's free 2-day shipping. I mean, how could you not want to take advantage of that?
Exactly. Now, I want to ask you this as someone that is an active collector that goes out to some of these events, because I watched some of your videos and I think I saw you at an event or two. Like, I'm pretty sure I saw you at an event at least once.
Yeah, I go to I mean, I was at New York Comic Con last year. I go to MegaCon, I go to SuperCon.
Yeah.
I went to Gamer Expo Con.
Gamer Comic Expo. That's what it was. I'm pretty sure. Because did you go there like briefly like that? Because I was there. I was hosting panels and stuff. That's probably where I saw you. But the reason why I
was there. I was actually talking to the owner of Flynn's.
Yeah, the arcade, because they just had a grand opening here, which is cool. But the reason why I bring that up is because I want to know about etiquette. I want to know about the etiquette between collectors, because I hear a lot of stories. And again, my world is usually just video games, and that would encompass retro gaming collecting and stuff like that, where there's a lot of different types of stories that you hear, both good and bad, about like how collectors interact with each other, especially for prized games that are like like NES cartridges that are like really hard to find, etc. And there's always like one thing or the other. I mean, from your experience, like what is that really like? Like, is there usually like a gentleman's type of like way of going about it? Is it a little bit more of a free-for-all? I mean, what is that like?
I mean, it depends. I mean, like if you're purchasing from another collector, that's one thing. I mean, I'm the type of person, I'm just as skeptical as the next person. If I don't, I mean, I really only try to kind of buy stuff if I know the person. Because there's that level of trust. I mean, just like you, I've heard horror stories too of, especially when it comes to purchasing stuff, people buying stuff over Facebook.
Yeah.
People always get scammed, or they don't, they send the money and then stuff doesn't get shipped out, or they do get it and it wasn't as advertised and the item might be damaged. It's very tough. I mean, that's why I'm not a big fan of buying stuff on the internet. I like to go out and find this stuff physically in person. And I have a whole network of, obviously people that I've met through doing YouTube and just collecting, and we all like, we're all like, hey, are you looking for this? I found this, okay, great. I'll save you the money, I'll send you the money and then I'll meet up with you in like a couple of days. And, and that's usually how it works. I mean, I've never really been scammed and I've never really had a bad experience. Dealing with everybody that I pretty much deal with on a regular basis is, honest and very forthcoming, and, they're very transparent in the way they, they operate their business or how they collect. So I don't think I can really answer that honestly, because again, like I said, I've never really had a bad experience.
Hmm. The reason why I bring that up is because, again, as someone that doesn't really know, like, being around those types of environments and stuff, I can only really go based on stuff that I've heard on, like, YouTube. Like, for example, Pat the NES Punk, who really has, like, a lot of a real strong understanding of that retro gaming collecting scene. I kind of get, what he talks about, and I kind of see is like, okay, maybe this is like how it is when most collecting, different types of stuff, not just games. The other thing I also wanted to ask you is that maybe, is there a little bit of an element of paranoia when it comes to buying stuff online? Because obviously you want to be able to see what you're buying, so being at an event is better to see what you're getting in.
Absolutely. Being at an event and buying it online is obviously two different things. Being at an event, you're going to be paying a premium, because, the vendors have to, make a markup in order to cover their nut for paying for the space for the booth. Yeah. And then, and then they mark it up, now as far as buying online goes, I've had bad experiences where I've actually bought stuff directly from company, like, from big brand companies, and the packaging is either come in completely destroyed, or, like Amazon, for instance, I'm not afraid to name names. Yeah, no. Funko, like with most companies, most stores get, exclusives, whether Funko has a Hot Topic exclusive, an Amazon exclusive, FYE, a lot of those big stores. I mean, in the past, I've ordered stuff from Amazon, and all they did was just put the pop by itself in the shipping box with no padding, with no padding around it, anything, because honestly, with a pop collector, the big, obviously, just like with even any collector in general, is condition.
Yeah, of course.
So, and if the box doesn't come in mint, then the whole thing is just basically a waste of money at that point. Unless you're an out of box collector. So
I want to ask you, like, because again, I know a little bit, obviously, from other different types of, like, collecting things, is that obviously quality and making sure things are mint and things are NRFB is like a really important thing. Like, how significant does the value of something, for example, just in your case, it'd be a pop, how significant is the drop in the value of something if there's like even like a nick on like the box or something? Like, let's say, for example, like something was sent to you and it just gets like scratched or like, bent or something.
It's huge. It really, and I hate to say that, but I'm not as nitpicky as most people. Obviously, if a box is crushed, I'm not going to waste my money on it.
Of course.
But there have been pops that I've bought in the past that are very hard to find, and yeah, the box is a little rough, but it's not like I'm going to do anything with it. It's for my personal collection. It's not like I'm trying to resell it or make money on it. That stuff just goes into my personal collection. But if it ever hits the point where later on down the road, I'm like, okay, this came out, let me see if I can make a trade with it, or, sell it so I can get whatever money I need so I can purchase what I want. When in reality with reset, when you're going to resell, it does hurt the value. I mean, you can have a pop that is on the price guide, that's like $300 in mint. That's mint. If there's like a crease or something in the box, that could be in most people's mind, that could be anywhere from a $50 to a $75 drop.
That's significant.
So now you're talking about something that was at $300. Now you're something that's down to like $250 or $275.
And I can imagine, like, a lot of people, obviously, if they're trying to resell their stuff like over time, they'd be, pretty upset with that, for one reason or another. It makes sense because people don't want to pay for that quality.
And that's why, and that's why there are items out there. I mean, I hate to use this word, but to protect your investment. They make protectors and containers to put the pops in. So, if it does fall off your shelf by chance, or, something happens and God forbid there's an earthquake and, your display gets disheveled, for the most part, the protectors do their job somewhat and protect the boxes, as much as they possibly can.
I feel you. Makes sense. It's definitely some important stuff to keep in mind. So one final thing before we wrap up this episode, and again, we're probably going to talk a little bit more on my EX mode for Patreon subs, so keep a lookout for that, guys. I want to ask you, what should people look for when they start collecting pops? I mean, what is it that, as a collector, like, what's the first thing that you want to look for, or the one thing that you want to keep in mind, as you're going out into the world searching for these things to kind of, add to your collection? Like, what's the one thing that speaks to you at first?
So I'll just give you a quick backstory on this real fast. So going back to like what we were saying before we started, I was like a huge WWE fan.
Mm-hmm.
My wife for Father's Day, God knows how many years ago, bought me a Hulk Hogan Funko Pop. That was my first ever Funko Pop, and that thing was, I was like, wow. I was like, this is really cool. I was like, okay. I was like, let me see what else they make. So I found out that they basically, whatever license they can get their hands on, they made it. And when I first started buying, I was just buying everything in sight, from Star Wars to movies to music. I mean, whatever they put out, I was buying it. And then at one point, I had like 700 of these things in my room at one point.
That is a lot.
And I'm like, yeah. And yeah, oh, there's people with more, trust me. And I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do with these things? And then at some point I was talking to other people that I knew, from collecting and everything, and they're like, listen, the best thing they told me to do is, and it's what I tell everybody now, it's collect what you like. You don't have to buy everything that comes out. Just purchase the ones that you like. And that's kind of what I did. So I took the 700 that I had, I narrowed it down to like 400. And the other 300 that I got rid of, I either traded or, I sold, but, and I took that and just reinvested it into getting the ones that I did want.
That's awesome.
As far as the lines go that I collect WWE, Marvel, DC, some of the movie ones, basically anything that they put out that I feel that resonates with me. I just don't go out anymore and just randomly buy stuff for the sake of buying it. So, that I think everybody hits that threshold at one point, especially in the beginning when they first start. Awesome.
Sounds dope. But Seth, thank you so much for chatting up with me, talking collecting and all this stuff.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, this is fun. And again, I love stuff like this because it's a little bit different for me, kind of parallel to my world in gaming. It's just like hearing about all these little things, because this is the type of stuff you go see at like a Comic-Con or any of the other events down here, and you're tangential to it, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. Where can everybody find you on social media? You're on the socials right now, right?
So if anybody's interested, you can head on over to YouTube. You can check out MCE. It's Marvelous Collectibles and Entertainment. Me and my good friend for well over a decade, George, share the channel. I handle more of like the pops and the figures and the hot toys, where George handles like more Star Wars related stuff and more statues. Do a lot of statue reviews and stuff like that. You can also follow me on social media on Instagram at What's Poppin. You can also find me at What's Popping I have a Facebook group page, and you can find me there. And yeah.
That's awesome. Definitely go check that stuff out, guys. Whenever you get a chance, send them some owl hugs, like what we always do here on this show. We send everybody owl hugs just because. And again, thank you so much for chatting up with me. But guys, let me know in the comments section down below if you guys enjoyed this episode. Talk to me. Who else do you guys want to see on the show? Anything that we talked about, give your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you guys can. Don't forget, I'm going to be doing a bonus episode with Seth now on my Patreon page. At the $1 level or higher, guys, you're going to get all this bonus exclusive content, plus all the other bonuses that we have now over on my Patreon page. With that being said, we will talk to you again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.